Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand of the company Horns of Odin. As always, before we jump into the show, I do have to plug our Patreon. I say it every week. It's the lifeline to the show. It's literally how we keep going week in, week out. Keep having amazing guests on, all because of the lovely people who support us over at Patreon. So it starts from £3 a month, less than a cup of coffee for me or Mags, and you get access to the entire back catalogue. So over 260 episodes you can't get anywhere else. You get bonus episodes like the Viking smut that myself, Mags, and Claire do, where we look at amateur Viking erotica. That is always a lot of fun. The last episode was fantastic. I was laughing the whole way through. So if you want to hear those, go and check out the Patreon. And if you can't, 5-star rating, positive review wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe someone new will find us and discover what we do and like it. But with that said, let's get into today's show. I'm really excited to see what we're going to learn and whether it's going to ruin my entire new venture that I've been working on for the past year. But we'll find out. So, that giggle belongs to my lovely co-host and in-house archaeologist, Mags Havgar.
Hello.
That giggle was you, Mags. It might have been Simon. I don't know.
I think it was me. I think I unmuted myself as I was giggling, so it became kind of abrupt as well.
I was like, I think that was you. It sounded like a Mags giggle. And then our guest today is Simon Trafford. Simon is a senior lecturer in medieval history at the Institute of Historical Research, University of London, specialising in the early medieval history of Britain and Northwest Europe up to the 1200s. So, Simon, thank you for joining us. And today we're going to talk about Mead, and particularly Vikings and Mead.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Mags. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me on here. That's great.
Thank you for joining us.
I'm going to say I'm really excited about tonight's topic because it was only fairly recently that I read an article where Mead was kind of briefly mentioned as something that we didn't really know that much about. And I kind of did an academic double take and I went, oh, hang on, maybe we don't actually. I've just kind of assumed, oh wait, that's kind of bad for me to do as a researcher, I suppose. What do we know about Mead? And then I just haven't had the opportunity to further deep dive into that. So I'm very excited to have you here, Simon.
Great. Hopefully, I mean, do we know a lot about it? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. It depends really, but we'll have a chat through it and have a think about it.
Are you saying that something in research, like that the results depend? Are you saying that they're not always static and constant in the humanities? What?
I know. Shock horror, terrible revelation. I know. Nightmare of me. How could I?
What are we going to do?
I've let everybody into that secret. Oh my God.
Shit. Dan, what do we do?
Well, let's see. So we're going to look at...
Sorry, it's just Dan over here going like, oh my God, academia humor. Okay, God.
I'm used to it now. I'm used to it. So, no, because Mead, I think, is synonymous with Vikings. For rightly or wrongly, that you can't think of what, or say to somebody, what did the Vikings drink? And they'll be like, that'd be mead, or that honey wine, or something similar, because it's being shown in TV shows, movies. The horns full. Obviously, we have some stories from the mythology. The kind of horns been sloshed together, drained entirety, drunk almost like water, I guess. And I guess you're here to maybe say, hang on a minute, maybe that's not the most accurate of things.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's not... I need to sort of jump in there and say the things that I'm not saying. I'm certainly not saying the Vikings didn't drink mead. That's not where I'm going.
No, I'm just kidding.
But what I am saying
It would have been a good
is,
headline, though.
Yeah, it would.
It would. Yeah,
Rage bait.
Yeah, that would have rage baited everybody.
exactly. This is where everybody gets very cross indeed with me. But no, that's not where I'm going. What I'm saying is that we need to have a look at the way that it is talked about, the way that it's constructed, the way that that the Vikings are thinking about it, or the way that our sources are thinking about it, because they're not all Vikings, or indeed mostly not Viking, whatever that word
Shocking.
means.
Yeah.
But and think about a bit more about the way that it's thought about, the way that it's emotionally regarded. That in some ways, at least, it's more of a wishful thinking. It's sort of this lovely, nice drink to think about more than necessarily a drink which they are sloshing around all the time and just drinking like water, as you say. But you're absolutely right in that there is this sort of feeling, a general sort of background idea that mead is an old drink, is sort of associated with the past, which is quite a weird idea, actually, because, I mean, sure, yeah, mead is really old. It is, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But so are beer and wine. We don't quite load all of that baggage of sort of antiquity onto beer and wine. I mean, sometimes we do. Sometimes when you're marketing beer, sometimes when you're marketing, less so wine, actually, there is a sort of, I mean, people use the Vikings to market beer, of course. People use all sorts of sort of past situations, but there's not quite that feeling that, that as you have with mead, which is almost all of your associations with mead are about mead halls and about people, yeah, possibly drinking from drinking horns. It's the sort of thing that you quaff in a hearty medieval sort of way, rather than a more normal drink, which is the thing that you get when you're just settling down of an evening and want to watch a video or whatever. It's always, there's something always a bit performative about mead, a bit sort of, I am drinking mead. By drinking mead, I am doing this slightly historic sort of thing. And it always has that quality.
It's really interesting that you say performative, because as a man who sells mead, that makes mead now, but has sold mead at trade shows, and we've got another one this weekend in Birmingham that we're going to. And I mean, I've never sold beer at a stall, so I don't know whether this is comparative. But you get people who come up to me.
You mean mead?
No. So what I mean is what I'm about to say. So in how people act when they see mead, because we get people who rush up to the stall and they'll just shout mead at you. Like, that's it. They'll just come to the stall and shout mead for no reason. And I don't know if people do that at beer stalls and run up and just go beer. There's just something that excites people, but also does seem to bring out this kind of over the topness. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Maybe because it's only really becoming a little bit more mainstream recently. I think 10 years ago you had to really look for mead.
Yeah. Absolutely, it has that sort of castle gift shops thing to it. That it's sort of, it's the if you go to, I don't know, Tintagel or somewhere, and you go and you come out and you're going through the gift shop, and there will be a display of all sorts of nice things, and there's your shortbread, and goodness knows what else. But there will be mead, and it's that positioning in your castle gift shop rather than in Sainsbury's. But I mean, I think nowadays it is starting to make its way into that sort of supermarket. But there's a bit of a gap, which I don't think it has quite jumped yet, between that sort of, it's something that you drink at a Viking festival or at a banquet, or when you've come home from the castle or whatever it may be, into being just some. You can't quite imagine it as just something that you just settle down and like you sort of drink with your mates or whatever. Or I mean, if you go down the pub, it's going to be there's something. Haha! It's quite thigh slapping and kind of like. Look at me, I drink mead, I like a Viking. And see my beard, it is growing at a rate of knots because I drink mead.
That is something that people say as well.
It's kind of got all of that. And there's something that there's at least a bit of masculinity about it as well. There's a bit of performative masculine. It sort of captures a lot of the ideas about masculinity that are wrapped up with the Vikings or with modern perception of the Vikings, and we roll that into Mead as well, which is all part of a sort of a certain heartiness about the Middle Ages, a certain bluffness and sort of strength and hypermasculinity and performative masculinity that is all rolled into the Vikings, and I think it's unlike almost any. I can't think of an obvious other drink that is quite like that, and that quite has that sort of connotations that's what it's about.
No, I'm trying to think too, and nothing springs to mind immediately.
You don't really see much mead marketed towards women, I don't think, either. A lot of it is very, like I said, masculine, Viking driven. Yeah, there's not, you don't get, even though it is a
thick beard, long-haired, tough guys.
But it can be a very delicate drink. Obviously, there's three ingredients to it. If you use a very delicate honey, obviously like a really smooth one like this one right here that we're about to release.
Nice plug.
So no, but we with ours we tried to make it really smooth, and we use a very delicate spring flower honey. So it's not overpowering. Whereas if you use the heather honey, it's really strong of honey. So
look at you with all your honey knowledge.
Well, you know, I've got to learn.
Yeah.
But in that sense, it could be a little more feminine inclined with a bit, you know, a bit more delicate.
But also, what is like with gendering tastes? Like, what is that?
There is that.
We all have taste buds, and I understand like gentler, but that also like gets into like the conversation that we keep having over and over again, Dan, which I think is interesting because at least I really love it. But it's just the whole like gender, like conceptions of performative gender just permeates freaking everything currently. And it all also like permeates how we, in heavy quotes, kind of objectively view the past, which is, you know, as we've covered multiple times, not objective at all, actually, it turns out.
But I think it probably also is, it just comes from how things were consumed, I guess. Like beer is usually
but that's a question for Simon,
masculine.
though. Do we know whether mead was a gendered thing?
Ooh, a gendered thing. In the 9th, 10th, 11th centuries, are you asking?
Yeah, sure. Like from historical sources.
Well, it's curious though, because you see an awful lot of the drinking sets of the sort of vessels and stuff cropping up in, how does one put this, graves that appear that
sure,
in all other ways appear to be gendered female. There's there are all sorts of archaeological problems with determining gender of graves. But leaving that aside for one moment, graves that appear to be gendered female also quite frequently have these drinking sets in, which is interesting. There is also quite a strong tradition of that quite high status women are serving mead and are being the providers of mead. And that's quite a long tradition, which you can see in various bits and pieces of heroic poetry from right across. This is not just Scandinavia. This is right across northwestern Europe. that there are women who are giving mead, but that relationship of being the mead giver is an incredibly important one, because that sort of idea that mead is provided by the lord and the lady to their retinue, to their warband, their comitatus, if you want to put it in Latin. That is the and so they provide that, they provide feasts, and in return, that warband provides military service.
Sure.
So the relationship between the two is between the giving of mead, and here very much it tends to be mead that it's described as, rather than other drinks, which makes you think that there is something particularly emotionally rich in the fact of it being mead. That mead is this sort of symbol of the good society, that your lord in this perfect imagined society gives mead, and your followers are given that mead and are given the good times. I mean, a mead stands here for all of that sort of mead hall society. So it is it's companionship. It is that moment of stories being told, of songs being sung, of the deeds of great warriors being talked about. All of that is what is going on in the hall, and that sort of companionship and gift giving by the Lord is what that is given to that warband, and what helps to unite that warband, which means that when it comes to combat or conflict or whatever they're doing, or sailing off, doing the very frightening thing of sailing across the sea in a boat that may well sink, they are united, and that they have their services have been bought, which in a sense is why the fact that it's almost always mead that appears in these in this poetic context is very significant. It says something about the way that this drink is, about the poetic, symbolic importance, and what that is saying about a particular sort of society.
Could it be like bringing out the 30-year-old wine to impress your guests, that you save a bit of mead back for when it's needed?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I'm going to say that thing. It's very difficult to tell. I mean, this is a tricky question, but yeah, it is. It's quite clearly a very high status drink. It is. It's not something that you just that is being brought out all the time. To the extent that it is brought out, it's almost certainly for that, for you're feasting in a hall with, and as I say, it's expressing that relationship between the Lord and his warband. It's not, when you're at home on the farm, you're not drinking mead. You're certainly not drinking mead, because you, as you say, it would be getting out that ridiculous bottle of whiskey, or the crazy bottle of like Clico, or whatever it may be, in order to you're not doing that just normal purposes at home. That's going to be ale, probably.
Obviously, I've done a little bit of looking into mead and the history of mead and all that kind of stuff, and it seems as though mead has always had this moniker of nectar of the gods. It's luxurious. Am I right in thinking the word might come from, or is it like mesa, the little cup that they think that like the gods or the kings drank from, and something?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there are cognates to that word mead, going right back. You actually get this in Indian Vedic poetry. There is in Sanskrit there is a word meta, which seems to be cognate at a sort of ancient Indo-European level with mead. And in the Rig Veda, mead is portrayed as this very elite, very high status drink. So you're going back thousands of years at that point to these very ancient sources. In the we do have a certain amount about it in Greek and Roman literature as well. Ambrosia may or may not be mead. We're not really sure what ambrosia is, but this sort of divine ambrosia of the gods may also
bloody
be
good
mead.
custard is what ambrosia is. That's what it is.
Well,
there's no there are only inferior custards than ambrosia.
Well, yeah, okay, there is that, but I mean, so it's quite clearly it has this sort of very very high status connotations going right back into basically as far as our sources will go. It's quite an odd thing about mead is it quite clearly is very old. It's also actually, I mean, it may well be that it is the oldest alcoholic drink that a human ever consumed, largely because if you've got some honey lying around and it gets wet for whatever reason, there are ambient yeasts floating around in the atmosphere that will convert that into a form of alcohol. It's not necessarily going to be the nicest thing you've ever tasted, but the basic process of, I mean, assuming that people were raiding beehives, perhaps even like keeping bees, and the process just of fermenting mead is actually a pretty simple one, and it's a damn sight simpler than everything that you have to go through in order to create beer, for instance, which is a rather more complicated process, which involves drying out barley and then partially allowing it to grow for a little bit, then stopping that, then putting it into a mash, mixing it with water. That's quite a process. That's quite complicated. Wine is not as complicated as beer, but it takes a bit more. It's a bit more than actually the complete basic process that's involved in creating some sort of fermented alcoholic drink from honey. So
plus, honey kind of occurs in more geographic areas, I would assume. Like for example, here in Norway, you could technically perhaps grow grapevines, but it's pretty hard. The climate isn't, necessarily super suitable to it, but we have a shit ton of honey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, perhaps less so. I mean, part of that is using modern approaches.
Oh, sure, but it's
modern
like
beekeeping. But yeah,
but it's possible.
No, I mean, sure, it is a lot. It's a lot easier to. There are all sorts of places that can produce honey in abundance. That are not places where you can grow grapes. I mean, barley will grow pretty much anywhere, but that is, as we said, that's a bit more of a complicated process. So, so mead or an alcoholic honey drink, there's a decent chance it is the oldest alcoholic drink that somebody was delighted to discover. I mean, you have to assume this was complete accident, and somebody just went, "Oh, I'll have a bit of that," and it's just like, okay, that's a bit strange.
Yeah.
I feel strangely lightheaded. It's like, what has gone on here?
Everything is like slightly a bit more funny now. Like, look, I walk a bit weird. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, it's all a bit strange, isn't it? And suddenly things, just that joke you made. Oh, I laughed
Hilarious.
that time. So it probably is. It may well be, but this is so far back in human history that you've got no means of confirming that. It's really, really hard to tell. So it is. It's a very, very old drink. It's probably quite high status, and is quite high status going through from the absolute origins of agriculture right through to this sort of early medieval period.
fun, because that's got me thinking. Because okay, again, this is very much speculative. My brain just going zoom, 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 and I don't know if we have any way to to test this or check this. But I started wondering that perhaps some of the luxuriousness connected to mead throughout all these time periods might maybe be connected to how sweet it can be, seeing as like sweetness isn't something that is super easy to get in drinks during all of these centuries prior to sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, do you have
And
any
I guess
thoughts on
calorie
that?
rich as well.
Yeah.
Even though they wouldn't have.
So it would
necessarily
kind of
understood
be
that.
like I get this is like an ambrosia kind of adjacent thing to say, I guess, but it wouldn't surprise me if someone genuinely did kind of describe the taste of it kind of being like liquid gold, because it has some sort of like a golden hue and it has a sweetness to it, and you get to feel fun because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's definitely, it's looked on as this sort of, it's a blessing. It's a really nice thing. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is not refined sugar. There's not refined sugar in any sort of quantity from beet or cane or whatever. That's really a sort of begins to happen in the early modern period. Possibly there's a little bit before in the late Middle Ages, but it's in essence that the that ability to get hold of just sweet stuff whenever you want it, that's not there. Apart from honey is the really the only and
thing.
best way of
Yeah, I can't think of
getting hold of it.
another natural product that's as sweet. And I guess it doesn't go off, does it? So it's almost has a godly.
And it's antiseptic. Like you could use it for a million things.
Yeah, so it has this kind of godlike properties around it, as if it has been given by the gods. It's a beautiful color. It's sweet, unlike anything else. It doesn't really go off, so you can keep it and store it. Alcohol from it, antiseptic. You then start thinking, oh, this might be left by, the gods.
For us, because we've been so good. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's this wonderful thing, and you do get that coming through in a lot of our early sources, where it is being portrayed in these. I mean, assuming if ambrosia is mead, which it may or may not be, but it's being portrayed in these absolutely glowing terms. So there is a substance sitting out there which is appropriate for the gods, and it may be mead, shall we say. It wouldn't be entirely surprising if it were. I mean, waving my scholarly caution banner around.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think we can allow ourselves a little bit of reasonable speculation and be happy saying that makes a certain degree of sense. Yeah.
And I guess it makes sense then why you get stories like the Einherjar having Mead in Valhalla, and also the Mead of poetry. I think we probably, as modern people, underestimate the value of skaldic poetry at the time. We've got entertainment coming out of our ears, and we still manage to say that we're bored. But you have your phone, you have TV, you can watch the internet. There's movies, CDs, everything you could
plain
want.
old books.
Books, yeah.
Podcasts.
Definitely, yeah, check them out. But in the Viking Age, obviously, you don't have all these things, and the skaldic poetry would be a bit of theatre. So the idea that this comes from this equally important adjacent drink would make sense. That it's made from this godlike nectar. Again, it comes from Kvasir's blood, a godlike figure.
Yeah, and given the importance of poetry to the people that are talking about the mead of poetry, I mean, who are poets. If that sentence made no sense whatsoever. But
I got it.
Let's run with it. So the people who are spreading the Mead of poetry story, which is the idea that Odin, whatever you want to call him, obtains this substance, the Mead of poetry, which is the ability to be wise, to create poetry. This is the most important substance in the world to the poets who are writing about it. So the fact that they express it in terms of it being mead says something pretty important. It says that we regard this as the highest and the most important and the most wonderful of substances. And we associate it with the most important of skills, which is being able to turn your words into something that is memorable and that will live forever and that will go down through the ages. So it's vital to have that to express it in that way, and that it's mead of all things which does this. It's not beer, it's not ale, it's not anything. It's mead. That says something about the importance of this drink.
Yeah, it's fun because that made me kind of chuckle internally because I went, sounds to me kind of like an Old Norse mead specific version of the first part of Hemingway's quote, the whole "write drunk, edit sober" thing. Write mead drunk, and your work shall be known forever.
I've always wondered that though, that you have this, that it comes from this alcoholic drink, and we all probably do get a little. There's that sweet spot of being drunk that I try to reach on this podcast every week of the right amount of drunk where
like
you just become funny and
just relaxed.
And it like that is a thing where maybe when you're performing this Nordic poetry, there is that kind of that Dutch courage, that kind of moment where you have some mead or some beer and hit that kind of sweet spot. Maybe there's that link as well.
Absolutely, it loosens the tongue, but hopefully doesn't actually make it just loll out of your mouth. But I mean, but then we have to have the fact that
well, maybe that's the bad poetry side, is where you have too much.
Well, exactly, which which of course is a part of that Mead of poetry myth that Odin is pursued as he is escaping with the Mead of poetry, but just as he is making his way to Asgard, he excretes backwards some of the mead that he has swallowed, and that falls from him. It's not entirely clear if he's doing this deliberately in order to deceive his pursuers. But that
it's like in a movie where they start to throw bits out of the car that's too heavy, and they want to get away from the bad guys.
I'm just imagining like furiously running for your life and just kind of having alcohol-induced diarrhea. Sounds awful.
I mean, he is in the form of an eagle at this point as well.
Okay,
sure.
Sorry,
I should have. But yes, he
at least he doesn't get it in his trousers, I guess, or his garments.
He excretes some of this mead that he's swallowed. And that falls to the earth is the inspiration for bad poets everywhere, and so he brings the rest of it that he takes to the gods in Asgard is the good mead, but then there is the bad mead, and you know that whoever wrote that has got somebody specific in mind as they are writing those words.
So you're telling me that, or telling us that in this story, the Old Norse people are literally calling bad poetry shit, like actual bird shit.
Mm-hmm.
There is like a sense of humor in these stories that I just adore.
It's just human, isn't it?
Yep.
You can just see us doing it.
It's something horrible that splatters out of Odin at that moment when he is being pursued hardest. And that's what falls to the earth and is picked up by terrible poets everywhere.
It's creative. It's
I mean, where'd you go with that?
I love it. Like, I'm just thinking maybe we should kind of rebrand it to when like we don't like something, we call it that was absolute dog shit. Maybe we should say it's absolute bird shit instead.
Yeah.
And then be like, if you know, you know.
I wonder if, because again, we're same with all alcohol, but mead in particular, it's a very easy drink to make. I've learned that, but it's tough to get right and to replicate. Obviously, they're not trying to get it to a standard as we'd have today. Probably not even as high a percentage as we have today. But
are you calling yourself better than the Vikings, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's right, though. He is almost certainly right, because we have this sort of like, oh, the Vikings must have done it right in this sort of weird authenticity obsession that we have. But no, of course they didn't do it better than us, because we're sterilizing our equipment. Yeah. We're using absolutely the best quality stuff that we can. We're doing it properly, and we've got God knows how much science that is also going into the way that we do these things and think about things. And we can call upon the advice of people who have been, I mean, which sure the Vikings did as well, but it wasn't nearly as sterile as the conditions that we could create. I mean, and God alone knows what random yeasts were floating into that sort of keg of honey and water and producing who knows what. So no, but he's better than the Vikings.
Okay, yeah. I was just checking. I don't have an issue with it at all.
I wonder whether this bad mead could be, like you say, some mold that's grown in it. And because they don't understand mold the same as we do, so I assume they'd probably still drink it. It just wouldn't taste maybe quite as good. Or things like oxidization that happens with mead, where you get a vinegary flavor. But that could be, probably would still drink it because they don't want to waste it. But it'd be like, well, that's not the best.
Yeah, there are. Don't question me on this too closely, because I can't remember this entirely. But there are indications that there is good mead and there is bad mead. And this is in sources where this is quite aside from the Mead of Poetry story, that people are sometimes people are being served the nicer mead, and sometimes they're being served the not so wonderful mead, and so there's a clear sense of the sort of gradations, and that you get the good stuff and you get the not so good stuff.
Yeah.
What about
Karen?
Could you just pop your microphone a tiny little bit away?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Better?
Yeah.
Better.
Yes.
That's better. You have a really good mic that picks up on a lot of ambient noise. If it's just a smidge too close.
Too close.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So what about the tale of Valhalla? Obviously that is the other one that the most people will have heard of, this goat that
lives on the roof.
Yeah. I've always wondered why a goat, first and foremost. Surely they know where honey comes from, but this goat that lives on the top of Valhalla and secretes. I don't know, is that the right word? Or
I mean,
meat comes from its udders.
Heithrun, who is the goat that lives on the roof of Valhalla, and yes. Mead drips from her udders, and is the drink of the Einherjar, of the noble warriors who have made it to Valhalla. That's weird, isn't it? I mean,
I just got the funniest picture in my head because I know we have no evidence of like drain pipes in the Viking Age, but
that's what I always think
I'm
of. Though,
imagining just like a longhouse with a drain pipe and just like people standing on the drain pipe, just going like, "Give me some mead." I'm just like, ah.
I've seen those people at Comic-Con sometimes. That's
and Hythrun is eating Yggdrasil as well. Is eating the world tree. That's so she's feasting on that.
She's feeding on,
and then produces mead from her udders. That's
so mead is the drink of life. Oh my gosh!
Yes, yeah.
The drink of the
it
universe.
Is. But that's a bit weird, isn't it? And there is there's something interesting going on there about what's happening there. But that mead that is being provided by Hythrun is then served by the Valkyries, and is served by the Valkyries by these nice or not nice young women, who knows, to the assembled warriors. But there again, that is a portrayal of that contract that I was talking about earlier. That that the contract there is these are warriors. This is a war band, and they are being served with mead. And the other side of that is that when it comes to fighting, that's what they will have to do at Ragnarok or wherever it may be. But what this is therefore all about is an imagination of the good society, of how Norse society should be if it is functioning perfectly. And what this is, what it's saying is that you receive mead for the services that you are giving. Just running away from the Vikings, just for a minute. But there's actually good evidence in Welsh poetry. There's a source called the Godothin, which is a slightly earlier sort of 6th, 7th century source in Welsh, which talks about Welsh warriors from Edinburgh, which was Welsh speaking at the time, but don't worry about this. So Welsh speakers from Edinburgh go south to Catterick. They lose a battle at Catterick, presumably against the English, and most of them get killed. But what this poem is talking about is it talks about their deaths as the bitter mead. Now, mead isn't bitter. So what that is saying is this is the bitter mead, which is the reverse of the sweet mead that they drank, that there was payment. So their deaths are the other side of the payment that they received as that war band. And again, it's capturing that relationship, but it's expressing, it's saying something about the relationship, about the nature of that society, about how the Lord should provide lots of mead, lots of food, everything to his retainers, to his warband, and in return, they give their lives for him. And that's bitter mead, but it's the right way that things are supposed to happen. And
so it's kind of like the bitter pill, a little bit.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's the other side of it. But they deliberately use that word bitter mead because mead is sweet, and so it's saying that yes, you have the sweet mead, that's right and desirable and good, but the bitter mead is that sometimes you end up dead, and that's the way of it.
Do you think there's any connection with? Because you said, in the long haul before the battle, the king, the jarl, whoever would bring out the mead and give that to the warriors in this exchange. But also, if you die and let's say you go to Valhalla, you get mead. Again, do you think there's some connection between this idea of giving what, if you go by the idea that all the Vikings do in fact want to go to Valhalla, they're ready to die, and that's the place where they would like to go, that we see in the popular TV shows.
The sigh, the drawn out sigh.
If you ascribe to that is in fact what everyone, what they want. I wonder if there is some link there with.
Yeah, I think that's fair. In fact, absolutely, that's fair enough. I mean, what you it's holding out this sort of the really blessed society that you really want, which may not be the perfect. You may not encounter this in your earthly existence, but if it's being held out to you as this wonderful that the society that you will go to is real Norse society, but turned up to 11. It's turned up to the point where it's perfect. It's functioning perfectly, and you have this. I was going to say benevolent, but I don't know if Othin's ever benevolent, really. But you have this. You have the warlord who is doing what a warlord should do, and he is providing for his warriors in the way that he should, and the symbolic purpose of that, or the symbolic intention of that, is created by the fact that it's me.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of comes through in moving on a little bit, just to say why we sort of think of Mead as being perhaps less something that occurs in real life. Lots of the language that is used to talk about Mead, firstly, Mead crops up in poetic contexts a lot more than it crops up in real world contexts. It's in skaldic poetry. It's in Eddic poetry. It's in Beowulf, of course. I mean, as being and again, you've got another paradigm of the idealized warrior society in Beowulf, and of course, it's what they drink there. But so it's in those poetic contexts rather than in things like law codes or rents. So, for instance, we've got plenty of evidence of what should happen if, in the event of a fight breaking out, in an, to use the Old English, ealahus, an alehouse, in the laws. What we don't have is what happens if a fight in a medjustal or a medjuhastal, because that's a real, because that doesn't happen, because it's a poetic construct that you are drinking mead in a mead hall, where you actually have to get down to the nitty gritty of a real life circumstance, which is what the laws are dealing with. It's an alehouse. It's not a mead hall.
Maybe poets are just more civilized, and they're not fighting for.
I don't know, man.
I don't know about that. Have you ever read any Snorri Sturluson or Edla Skapgrimson? I mean, these are civilized is. It's not necessarily the word I would use.
So we see it, because obviously I read your article before, and it seems that it's in the poetry, it's in the older kind of stuff rather than the newer like prose, I guess, the Icelandic sagas and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, we've got there is an issue there, which possibly interferes with what I'm saying, and it's important to acknowledge the issue there, which is that the majority of the Icelandic stuff is relatively late, is 12th, 13th century. Mm-hmm. The Old English stuff is a bit. I mean, it's specifically Beowulf is probably late 10th, early 11th century, something of that order. But in both cases, they seem to be looking backwards deliberately and self-consciously, and they're looking backwards to a sort of idealized, a sort of never land society that isn't quite now. that is it's sort of in the realm of the ideal and of the heavenly, if you're talking about the sort of Eddic stuff about Valhalla, or indeed the myth of the Mead of poetry. It's backwards. It's looking to
fanfic
another
about the past.
realm. Yeah, exactly.
There-
Beowulf,
Some
like,
irony there in the modern day, then, isn't there? I guess
absolutely.
that's. I'm just gonna wheel behind me a second and get some more mead. Some lovely Hornswoden mead coming to the website very, very soon. So please carry on. I'll be 2 seconds.
So you should, yeah. Yeah, there is, yeah, absolutely, because sure, when we sit down and drink our mead in a slightly performative, slightly idealized sort of way, and imagine it to be the drink of the Vikings. Actually, the Vikings were doing almost exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
That they are looking backwards to a society that they like to think about, like to tell stories about. And the same is true of any of the people. If you, the people who are coming to your stall at whatever fair it may be, or the people who are going to Jorvik Viking Festival or whatever Viking festival it may be, and going and drinking mead. They're also, I mean, it is a romanticized view of the past where you are telling stories about an age which you see as slightly more exciting, slightly more ideal than your own, or perhaps not even that. That at least you just want to be transported there for a bit.
Yeah.
And
it
the
reminds me
Vikings
of
are doing,
stuff like Outlander that we have today, as written of from a century, like 3 to 4 centuries like before us. And it's like that's kind of the same thing when you have, skaldic and poetry like stuff from like the 12th, 13th, 14th centuries. They're doing that.
absolutely, yeah. It's backward look. I mean, the context in which that a lot of the Icelandic saga material is being produced is the long winter nights in Iceland when these farming folk basically were sitting around talking about the great glorious deeds of the past. And it's a sort of, it's backward looking, and so when if I'm saying that I think that that probably the Vikings didn't drink mead quite as much as sometimes we like to portray it. Well, no, but they did like to think about it. They like to think about. I mean, it's the same way. It's almost like going to a James Bond movie and seeing him drinking sort of vodka martinis, shaken not stirred, and reaching the conclusion that what people drink in the late 20th, early 21st century is vodka martinis, shaken not stirred. No, of course it isn't. It's a fantasy, and it's thinking about this sort of rather enjoyable place that we can inhabit for a bit and enjoy. But that doesn't mean that we're idiots or anything. It means that we enjoy that, and then we can come back from it and go and live our normal daily lives. We're just enjoying a story, and what's wrong with that?
It's so human, isn't it? That I don't know. You don't think of the Vikings looking back at a time before and kind of fantasizing how he must have been the olden days. It's something, I don't know, that feels like a very modern thing that we do today. We sit there and go, oh, it wasn't like that in my day, or when I was a kid things weren't this tough. And to think that
is a very human experience. And then what I find funny about it is that it happens in every century we have any written material. It's like kids these days, they don't go outside anymore. They just read books.
Yeah. But we how often do you hear today, oh, the world's going to shit. Everything's like, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I have a little theory about that. I think that we just have unlimited access to the entire world, so we actually just see all the shit that happens. It's the same old shit that's probably been happening for forever, but we now just see it, whereas you used to see what was in the newspaper each given day. So I don't think the world is necessarily any worse than it ever has been, and that there's some impending apocalypse about to happen. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but I just think that it's enhanced by our just ability to go onto Instagram and see the atrocities all over.
Can I just do a little add on to that, Dan? I'm so sorry. But for
Sure.
any future historians or archaeologists, if there does come an impending apocalypse and this episode somehow makes it through, can someone please write an academic article about
Told you so.
the thoughts that we've explored and the argument formulated by Dan? Because I agree with him, but just it would be funny if that were to happen.
Objectively, it would be funny.
It would objectively be funny.
But, we look back at the past and say it was easy. People today, even just in our generation, you get, I don't know all the different names for the generations, but Gen Z, let's go with, they look at the baby boomers and say, well, you guys had it easy because the houses were cheaper. And I'm sure the baby boomers, when they were younger, said, look to the ones before, and maybe not those ones because they might have been part of the war and the Great Depression. but you get the idea. Look to the ones and said, you guys had it easier because you had this. And it seems like that effect that we just haven't see it even in the Viking Age is kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think there's always, you get that rolling generational effect that young people always have this fantastic insight into how the world is wrong and how they should change it and so forth. But they always do that, and this is not sort of boomer or Gen X or millennials or whoever. But they keep on inventing this story sorry. I'm not dissing young people here. Young people constantly have this notion that they see it and understand it and can change it and have got an idea of what's wrong. But equally, there are these old people who are constantly saying, sort of looking at young people coming up and saying, don't know they're born. They have it completely easy. And so I think I'm less a believer of the particular nature of Gen X or Boomers or Gen Z or whatever it may be, and more of a believer that young people tell old people they're idiots, and old people tell young people that they're idiots as well, constantly, and it's a constantly rolling thing.
Because the human memory is fallible, and when you get to an older age, you actually forget how you thought when you were young. My opinions have changed wildly from when I was 17, 18. Like, I was a fucking idiot, but I thought I knew everything. Yeah. I would be ashamed to express some of the opinions I probably had when I was
almost
teenager.
go the other way around a little bit and be like, I wish I had the balls that I had or ovaries, whichever, that I had, with the strong opinions, and my follow through was better, let's say, about my my ideals and principles. But I also think, I think it's also like a product of, you can only ever experience the time that you are in, right? So far, like, as far as I know, no one's invented time travel yet. And especially like multiple kind of ways of experience different lifetimes in different periods, not necessarily, or not even necessarily different periods, but different generations, meaning that you are intrinsically a product of the time that you are in, regardless of what that means. But that means that history is so interesting and perspectives are so interesting because you are ultimately affected by stuff that is going around you and what you're exposed to and what you're not exposed to.
And this, kids, is why you should study history at university. And just the sheer awareness of that people can think in an entirely different way from you, and that there is, and that which seems inevitable and obvious good sense to you is very historically specific and is a product of all sorts of things. But just being aware that people in the past just thought differently and could have a really different perspective on things.
Yeah.
And people today think differently based on their upbringing, the culture they come from. There is no right or wrong way to be. You just made me think then, Mags, when you said if we had no one's invented time travel, that maybe we should end every episode by asking our guests if we did have a time machine, what they would like to learn from the Viking Age. Now I'm going to put that out there. I think that would be a fun way to end it. I will probably forget it by the end of this episode, let alone the next one, but it's in the universe and we can try to remember. So I think that would be a fun little thing to do. But one thing is always intrigued
Why don't
me,
you
Simon,
just start Simon, like asking Simon now then, so we don't, blunder.
Don't ask Simon now. Give Simon a little bit of time to think what he's going to say.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay.
We'll
Sorry,
end
Simon.
it. Yeah. One thing I've always wondered is, and I don't know if you will know the answer to this, but the availability of bees and honey and beekeeping, do we know how many bees there was? Was it a common thing? Because obviously today we see bees pretty commonly. I know everyone loves bees as well. They're like the one insect that just, because it's just fluffy and cute, I guess they kind of just skirt all the other insects. Everybody's like, yeah, look after the bees, protect those guys. So is that similar in the Viking Age? But do we get beekeeping? Are there a lot of bees? Is honey, because honey is pretty easy to get today.
Today it's easy to get. I mean, super complicated question, and there are various different things that we have to take into account here, which is, for a start, slight alterations in climate over the period that we're talking about. So in approximately 8th to 13th century, you get a climate maximum. You get what's called the medieval warm period. And following that, you get something called the Little Ice Age between about the 14th and the 17th, 18th century, where things get a lot colder and wetter. So you've sort of got some slight changes going on there. But you've also got you've got to ask questions about the beekeeping technology that's available, and from our best indications, which are not all that good, important to acknowledge the limitations of our knowledge here. From our best indications, the sort of beekeeping that is happening in the Anglo-Scandinavian, Northwest European world in the sort of Viking Age, you are killing almost all of the bees at the point when I mean, this is sad if we like bees, which I think we all do, but you're killing all of the bees in order to extract the honey from the hive,
really?
which is.
I mean, I've seen some modern processes that do that, which are quite horrific. Is why I'm quite particular about where I get my honey from, because they put it in like a press.
I mean, there's only one little bit of archaeological evidence for beekeeping in the Scandinavian, its broadest sense, world, which is from Coppergate in York. And there is, bizarrely, a layer of bee corpses in one particular area of the site, which and they're honeybees, and so the easiest way to understand that is beekeeping going on. So the one place in the Scandinavian world that we do see that we have concrete archaeological evidence for beekeeping is, funnily enough, in York. It's interesting that it's the middle of a town. Well, however big York is, but it is in the middle of a town that people are keeping those bees. You wonder if how acceptable that was to their neighbours. But that's our one sort of really good piece of archaeological evidence for it. Whether it's happening in Scandinavia, it's probably happening in southern Scandinavia, probably. But it quite clearly isn't happening in Iceland. Iceland is actually really interesting because there's some evidence that shows that in the late as the 12th century, the church is asking permission to give the sacraments in beer rather than wine, because so at the point when they're being given the body and blood of Christ, they just don't have enough wine kicking around in order to do it. So they ask if they can use beer instead.
He could just transfer. He could just turn it to wine, couldn't he?
Well,
turn the beer to wine.
Well, exactly. You would have thought, but I can't remember whether they actually respond, whether they get a positive or negative. I think on the whole they're a bit iffy about it shouldn't really be beer, but there is but. So you've got supply problems in the north, and almost certainly you've got supply problems with mead as well. There is a certain amount of evidence to suggest that when traders going to England are getting hold of honey or getting hold of mead, traders from Scandinavia, that they are deliberately getting hold of it, which perhaps suggests that there may be supply issues. Admittedly, this is 12th, 13th century sources. It doesn't necessarily hold good for the earlier period, but there is that.
There's a certain indication. But that makes it really fascinating, like kind of circling back to, the luxuriousness that we were talking about earlier. Because if mead then is so luxurious, and again, the lack of evidence doesn't necessarily need to be evidence in and of itself, but it could be. So perhaps then, if this lack of evidence is hinting at the fact that maybe beekeeping was something that they didn't necessarily have a hang of to the same extent that we would just maybe kind of assume, then the, honey and then in effect mead would be all the more precious because it isn't readily available.
Yeah. Dan, sure. Can I just dive in? And yeah, there's a really interesting source, which is from again, this is English, but it's Viking age, which is in the court of King Alfred, so end of the 9th century. We've got a source there inserted into a text that Alfred had commissioned called the Old English Erosius is what it's known as. But into this source, there are a couple of additional things which are inserted into it, which are essentially travelers' tales from of people who were present in Alfred's court, of people who had traveled to Scandinavia. The famous one is the more famous one is Otera or Ottar, probably, who which gives us a bit of a description of what's going on in Scandinavia. But there's another one which is a guy named Wulfstan of Hedeby in Denmark. And what he says is that he talks about these people called the Este, who are somewhere around the Baltic, probably, maybe Poland, maybe what's now Kaliningrad, Königsberg in what's now Russia, or possibly Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. It's that sort of area. And he says that that no ale is brewed amongst the Este of this land because there's so much mead. And he says specifically that the king and the most powerful men drink mare's milk, and the poor men and the slaves drink mead. And that is the only reason you would put that story in, and the only reason that you would express it in those terms is because what you're saying is, this is really weird. This is the absolute reverse of what's going on in England or in Northwest Europe. You've got this weird upside down situation, poor people, slaves drinking mead, but mead's a high status drink. What the hell's going on here? That's why that story is inserted in there. Now that's quite interesting because what you really have in that area of the Baltic then and to a certain extent still, is a relatively low population density and massive forests. And there seems to have been forest beekeeping, which you can do in the forests like that, which is very, very, very productive. And for that reason, at the point when mead is sort of disappearing in Western Europe, and it dwindles to more or less nothing by the 17th, 18th, 19th century. Certainly by the beginning of the 20th century, there is basically no mead being made anywhere in northwestern Europe. Maybe a few farmers, if they're beekeepers, perhaps when they wash out their hides, their hives, they will make some mead with the residue. But it's not. There's no commercial production. It's not really. It's something you'll get in the country. Whereas in Poland, in Latvia, Lithuania, there are these really strong indigenous mead production, mead producing, which carries on right the way through that period because they've got such easy access to honey.
It's still really big today, isn't it, in that area of the world?
It really is. And I did a little bit of work on this, looking at the way that mead is sold, and looking at the sort of the ideas, the branding of mead in different places. And if you go to Western Europe or the US, or even some slightly unexpected places like Argentina, you get Viking mead branding. So there are.
I can have one guess why Argentina has Vikings. I don't know if I agree with that.
Some modern historical connotation there, perhaps.
Yes, yes, there is that.
Some expats of a certain variety.
Yes, quite possibly. But if you go to Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, none of it is ever Viking branded.
Really?
It's always sort of local because they don't need to.
Because why would it be if it's a local historical tradition?
Absolutely, mead is just, and it's never had that sort of connotations of being old and sort of something from the past, because it didn't die in the way that it did in northwestern Europe or the rest of the world.
That's
there,
so
it was
cool.
it was something that they just continued to drink. So if you look at your mead makers in Poland, etc., they're all just named after the town that they're in or whatever. They never have any of this sort of Viking paraphernalia at all, because it's just not needed. It's not.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because obviously, I have a Viking themed business, so for me it makes sense to make a Viking themed mead.
You don't have to look slightly embarrassed, Dan. There's nothing to be slightly embarrassed about.
There isn't.
But when we did the research and bought a ton of mead to just try other people's, obviously I've sold other people's mead for a long time, a lot is kind of Viking themed, but there are a few, and I think there's probably more now. There's some in and around London, but I think there's quite a few that you see in a lot more sparkling mead and a lot more like modern twists, I think, on that. Because I think a lot of people see mead to be a heavy, wintry style, sweet drink, but it really doesn't have to be.
No.
Hans Voda mead coming soon, very smooth, summery drink. You can have that all year round. But it is, that's kind of light, and there are a lot of lighter meads out there. And I think there is obviously a resurgence that's probably started with Viking themed, but it seems to be hopefully like kind of spreading out, and there's some.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, I mean, one of I absolutely agree that there are quite a lot of people who are not using the Viking branding, and I think actually are kind of running away from it, and instead wanting to position mead in a health food notch. Basically, there is a it's saying this isn't that sort of big industrial commercial production using sugar or whatever. They're positioning it in a, this is made from honey, water, yeast. That's it, and possibly some flavorings as well. But it's positioning it in a sort of more artisan, hipster, I suppose. I mean, that's pejorative, but it's positioning it in a different place, which has some advantages because maybe you don't want to have it just as this drink that men with beards and drinking horns are having.
Yeah. You do get that. That's my worry, is that you get pigeonholed. Obviously, for me, the audience is. But I've also thought of, well, I could just take this product, put maybe a nice floral label on it, spring flower, and you could go to a different audience that maybe wouldn't pick it up.
Can I show you guys something hilarious? Because I got very curious about like how mead is marketed in Norway. So I just went into vinmonopolet.no, which is, this is not a plug at all, but just like that's the main like alcoholic beverage center in Norway. And I found a lot of interesting types of mead that were or were not, and it was how should I put this? A disappointing amount of Norwegian produced mead that is not necessarily directly Viking Age related, but that has some sort of runic hints in the label, maybe. But then I started laughing my ass off because when I looked at, like, I just went to kind of all products. I hope this is going to be clear for you guys to see. But let's see here. When I went to all products and I went to kind of product type, you see here, mead, it has a drinking horn next to it.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was like, that is peak.
Yeah. But it is stuck with that.
Yeah.
It is, and ultimate, and if what you are trying to do is grow your market, and you don't want to be stuck in one demographic. I mean, the beauty of the people who drink mead and who always have drunk mead is that they're loyal and they're good, and they will continue, and they'll have probably several different meads, and they'll want to drink. That's what they do, and they will really enjoy it. But that's not a huge demographic. And if you want to reach out and broaden out to more people, if you want that in the shelves in Tesco's, then you can't just restrict it to the people who always have drunk mead. It's got to reach out a bit more, and you've got to almost claw your way into an Alka-Pops market, which is sad because you don't necessarily want it to be in the same category as WKD or something terrible. But
I think that's one thing I've thought about all the time, is where do you put it? If I was to approach a supermarket and to look over this mead, where do they then put it? Because they've got a beer aisle, they've got a wine section that's got, multiple different countries. They've got ales, like the spirit sections, the gin, but there's no mead section. So I guess he would go with liqueurs probably. And it's that there isn't that much knowledge and awareness around it, and it's sorry, Leslie. I think in part that comes from there being very little government regulation around mead, whereas cider is one of the heaviest regulated alcohols. Like, there is very specific guidelines of what makes a cider. Similar with beer, gin, whiskey, rum, everything has parameters. Mead doesn't. Mead, because I think probably because it was an old drink that went out of fashion, has come back. It's been overlooked by particularly the UK government. So there isn't a definition of this is mead. So you get a vast difference. You have us, the mead we're making, but there's people like Hive Mind, Afamel. There are a ton of mead makers out there that keep their own bees or specialize in 100% honey mead, which I would say is, the right or correct way to do it. But you unfortunately then get a subsect that is just about making money that will use 30% honey and the rest refined sugar. Now you get a different product, and they're both mead, but they're not quite both mead. One's also available to be much cheaper because honey is quite expensive. So there's this kind of disparity around what the product is, even amongst people who like and know mead. So then to try and then put that outwardly into people who don't have any idea what mead is, when you can't make your mind up in your own little sphere, I think is a very difficult thing to do. So I'm not, until maybe the government step in and kind of say what a mead is, I think it's going to be quite difficult to promote it and say this is kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is as I understand it, in the States, they have got a much closer definition of what a mead is than there is over here. Where, as you say, the mead is not legally defined. I mean, it's kind of weird because everything else, all of its competitors are.
Yeah, HMRC really like to make sure you're doing what you're doing. So it's really odd that it's kind of scared. But I guess like you say,
the market hasn't been big enough, kind of.
Yeah, it's not big enough a market for them to care, which is but it is sad because it's tough to compete when you get
with bird shit.
That is it. Maybe, but that's a great example that you do. You get a mead that's made 100% honey, but then you get one that's got a lot of refined sugar in it. What the refined sugar one could be sold a lot cheaper, but also it's going to have that feel that a lot of people associate with mead of hyper sweet.
Yeah,
because it's got that extra sugar in there. Whereas mead isn't always super sweet because you can ferment it to dry and it can be really dry. I'm sure to a Viking Age person it would be extremely sweet regardless because they're just not used to it. So there are these huge gaps of kind of what is a mead. Obviously, I'm quite passionate about this.
No, rightly so. Absolutely rightly so. I mean, so you damn well should be because it's I mean, and I completely agree. And it shouldn't be. Suddenly, mead can be a lovely drink of all sorts of different qualities. All sorts of different textures, all sorts of different tastes. It doesn't have to be some sort of like sticky mess by any means. And this idea of it constantly being just sort of very, very sweet. I mean, mead can be sweet, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a sophisticated and quite a subtle taste, and there is a risk of it whilst until it is properly legislated for. That any old rubbish more or less can be sold as mead. And there is a risk that it sort of ends up pigeonholed as an alcopop. There's an interesting thing actually, which says something about different cultures. But I've seen some mead in cans, and that's an interesting sort of can. Yeah. Cans versus bottles.
Like I understood, but like a beer can.
Yeah,
type thing,
more or less. Which is
that just doesn't jive in my head for some reason.
Everybody says this, but Hive Mind, I love the guys over at Hive Mind. They're two brothers, and they make fantastic mead. They do some sparkling meads in like the 330
sparkly mead also
size.
Just seems weird to me, but again, I haven't really tasted any of it, so I can't say.
It's really nice though. It can be lovely.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
So
absolutely
the
sure.
guys at Hive Mind make some fantastic like sparklings, and to be fair to them, none of their stuff's really focused towards Vikings. That's all very kind of just they're from the
It's
Wye
just a
Valley,
drink.
and they just they make some really lovely sparkling meads, and they do a rhubarb one that is like fantastic. But a lot of people do the same as you did, Mags, is that they kind of go because you think of again this heavy, luxurious kind of
But
mead.
is that kind of the elitist thing? That's like as soon as it's in a can, it doesn't seem as luxurious.
But I think sparkling as well, though, like that idea
Yeah.
of sparkling feels like because I don't know, I did this. I did the same when I first had it. I was like, sparkling mead feels really odd to like sparkling. It's not that kind of thing, but it works.
Yeah.
It really does work.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sure.
When I bought it, it was like there was a bit of a experiment here, see what happens, and it's just like, oh, okay, that's actually really, really nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Good
like
stuff.
they know what they're
go with that.
doing.
Yeah. Yes. Weird, huh?
Yeah, they do. Before we wrap up, I did want to ask about honey.
Can you just
like
pronounce that word
mead.
again, Dan? Because your Yorkshire
Honey.
accent is so nice.
Honey.
No.
Honey? Honey.
No, the way you say honey. I love it.
Honey.
Honey.
Honey. So, do we honey versus mead? Because I would assume that not all honey is used to make mead. It has its value as a food substance on its own. It's calorific, it's sweet. So, do we see honey mentioned in? And again, I don't know whether that would be part of your research to look for that.
Yeah. I mean, sure, it is. You see, I mean, and honey, sure, but let's also think about wax, beeswax. That is another really big product, and a really, really important product, and so there's you've got to bear that in mind as another thing that is coming out of it's literally coming out of bees, but it's coming out of beehives. So honey is traded, honey is exported. It's one of the a bit later on, sort of central medieval, later medieval period. This is a big thing that the Hanseatic League are trading around. So again, these sorts of that Baltic area, big sort of bee production, honey production, lots of that is being exported and is very, very profitable. Wax also, wax particularly once you get people wanting to make lots of candles, because you can. I don't know if you've ever been in a room which has got tallow candles, but Jesus Christ, it's horrible.
Smell.
They smell. I mean, because basically it's melting dead animal, which is just being. I mean, Jesus.
Beeswax candles, on the other hand, smell
beeswax candles
wonderful.
Are lovely, are absolutely delightful. So if you want to be in a place wax is incredibly important, possibly even eclipsing honey, but honey likewise is very, very, very important. And is a big object of trade in its own right. It's your principal sweetener, and it is, and as you say, good, absolutely wonderful source of calories if you can get it, which then makes you wonder how much of it is going into mead, and if its value is not greater as honey than it is as mead. But you are always going to get, when you are cleaning hives, you are going to get a substance which is water and honey mixed together, and that's all. You're always going to be able to make some mead out of that. But I mean, looking at the sources, mead has got a very high status. So it is esteemed. It is this big, slightly supernatural, slightly otherworldly, slightly drink from the past, but it's also very, very high status. Not quite as high status as wine. Worthwhile remembering, Othin himself drinks wine. He doesn't drink mead. So
yeah, I've always wondered
because he's
that.
classy as fuck.
Yeah, because
wine even is would wine because you
Because
never
we can't
really
make
hear of
wine here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you never hear of wine mentioned around Vikings. So if there was a hierarchy, would it be
that's the
ale, mead, and then wine is the top because it's not really.
well, right at the bottom, you probably actually have milk. You may have milk alcohol, which is
Oh,
not.
That sounds so bad.
oh my God.
Yeah, whenever it's mentioned, it's always very much, oh my God, this is what he offered. He offered me milk. So there's
And also, this is from pre-refrigeration times. Like,
yeah,
no.
yeah. Well, that's what makes it alcoholic. I mean, it's syrah is this sort of sour, weak milk alcohol, which is
Jesus.
that really is the lowest of the low. That is not that's not what you really want. Lactose
We're
based
gonna have to get
alcohol.
Sam to edit that clip where me and you, Max, we just both go, "What?" Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, a little Baileys in a coffee is quite nice.
Oh, that's true, but the alcohol in that isn't made from the milk. That's alcohol, which is
No.
but yeah. So right at the bottom of the scale, you've got milk alcohol, but that's not something
Sounds
that
like
anybody
the
really
pits.
wants
Sounds
to drink.
awful, doesn't it?
What people are probably mostly drinking is ale, which is so it's öl in Old Norse, or eala in eala ealu in Old English, and that is what people are drinking most of the time. Probably they are drinking small beer most of the time, and small beer in preference to water a lot of the time. So everybody drinks ale.
Which has
there
like
is
fairly low alcohol content, if I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah,
it is.
Right.
I think that's a misconception.
Yes, it's like, they're not like
we have.
sashaying around all the time slightly
God,
tipsy
no.
necessarily. It's more like we know for sure that this water is clean because it's got alcohol in it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very, very weak. Then there's something slightly stronger, which is Mungout, which is sort of a stronger ale. There is also some Mungout, which is it's a weird word, and it's hard to think of any cognate in any modern language, but it's there in the
because to
sources.
me it sounds like an amalgamation of the Norwegian word for mouth and the English word gout. So like I was like, mouth gout? Ew. What?
But that so that's the sort of slightly stronger
Okay.
barley alcohol, the maltose.
So not quite there yet, but on the way to become.
Yeah, but I mean, we also have something which is called Beor in English, or Björ in Old Norse, but that almost certainly isn't beer. What that probably is a fructose-based alcohol. So it's weirdly, it might be cider.
Okay.
So it might be
any fruit that they could.
Apple, pear, like, and
exactly.
you got like those like raspberry beers and stuff like that.
Precisely, yeah. And so that's a sort of, and that is, again, that's probably about the same status as ale, maybe a little bit higher. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Tastes nice.
But that word beer gets transferred later on, probably 13th century, 14th century, something like that, into this new hopped ale, which has certain qualities which are associated. But before that period, ale is given bitterness or given flavour by what we would nowadays call botanicals, which are various plants, probably things like yarrow, various sort of bog myrtle, marsh rosemary, those sorts of things. That's what you use to flavour ale. In the 13th century thereabouts, beer, which previously probably has meant cider, probably, can't be certain about that, it gets used to describe this stuff that has got hops in. Hops probably are being used a little bit earlier than that, but not on such a large scale. And the beauty about hopped beer is that it keeps for longer. And once you have got this hopped beer, that then becomes a drink which can be produced on an industrial scale in big breweries. And so you get a move from a sort of domestic production of ale, which has probably been concentrated in female hands, into an industrial production of beer, probably concentrated in male hands.
Goddamn patriarchy. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely. And
you even took beer away from us.
That's it.
So that's an interesting little thing, but it's people reading our early medieval sources look at this beor word or björ word and think, beer. Probably it isn't. It isn't. It probably not until a late stage. So
just to kind of, because here's the thing, I am not a beer drinker and I never have been. So my ale and beer knowledge is kind of cursory. So just to kind of try to, but funny enough, I hail from a family called Hopstock in Germany, which likely produced beer because of the hop and the stock. So you're telling me, so the beer with, hops in it, that's kind of adjacent or equivalent to the beer that's commonly had today. Correct?
Yeah. No,
which means
the beer that we have today is normally flavored with hops.
Exactly.
And that gives it bitterness.
So when people are talking about ale or beer, then in the Viking Age, that wouldn't necessarily apply. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know.
Yeah, you probably do get there is a drink called beer in the Viking Age. It probably is not barley-based alcohol flavored with hops. It is probably fruit-based alcohol, cider or perry or something like that. What the thing that becomes our beer and becomes, I don't know, Budweiser. Actually, that's barely beer, but that becomes what we think of as beer. That is
Guinness.
That old maltose-based drink, that old barley-based drink of ale. But hops start to be introduced on a larger scale, and they drive out the older flavorings.
And this is
which are
way
called,
after the Viking Age.
This is way after the Viking Age. This is 13th, 14th century. There probably are people
today.
may be using hops in the Viking Age, but it's not on that large scale. And it doesn't have this sort of effect of driving out the old flavorings, which are called grout, G-R-O-U-T in English, or G-R-U-I-T in Dutch, which is what it's most associated. Yeah.
But so on that scale, you had, sorry to just kind of to track back, you had the beer that's maybe cider, but then so we started with the pit's milk alcohol.
We had milk,
and then we got to the cider. So what would be then above that?
Then way above that is mead, and mead is always.
So we got a pretty big gap then.
There's a big gap, yeah. So you've got all of these drinks which everybody drinks, pretty much. I mean, and then way above that is mead, and that's status. That is always high status.
Like champagne.
There's no doubt
type
about.
Shit.
This is wonderful, wonderful mead that we write poems about.
Yeah.
So it's always up there as the high status drink, but then above that is wine. And what wine has got?
Wine always wins, doesn't it?
I know. It's Mediterranean.
Them's the grapes.
And it's associated. So what it's got a number of things. Christian period, it's got Christianity.
Yeah.
Before the Christian period, it's got Romanitas. It's got Romanity. And all of your models for the ultimate in high status living in Northern Europe, from certainly in the Viking Age, probably in the migration period, possibly before that. Your model for high status living is, do we look like Rome? Or do we look like our imagination of what Rome is? And part of our imagination of what Rome is well, they drink wine, don't they?
Yep.
And so if you're behaving in a Roman sort of way, so the top of the scale of Vikings is Othin, and Othin is not doing what Vikings do. Othin is not drinking mead.
He's above.
He's above all of that. He is doing what Romans do. He's drinking wine, which is as exotic as it comes. Can't make it round here. It has to come from far away. So the absolute head honcho, the top of the scale, he's drinking wine.
Jesus Christ, all roads really do lead to Rome, because no matter what conversation we have, somehow the Roman Empire always gets involved, and I don't know how that happens.
There's such a big question there about, in the 3rd century, are people in Scandinavia drinking wine? Maybe. What you need is in one of these sort of old hall sites in Denmark or the Mälaren Valley or wherever. You need an amphora to turn up, which would be that wonderful clinching little bit of proof.
Yeah.
But they haven't yet. But that's not to say that they won't. So are they drinking wine? My guess is, probably.
Maybe.
But it's at the absolute top of the scale. Just on the grounds that when people have got a model of status, and you are on the edge of this great, amazing empire that is doing all of this stuff, you want to look, if in order to cow your local peasants and say, I am absolutely the top of the scale, you want to look like the people, the empire. You want to look like those imperials off to the south who are amazing. And so what you're probably going to do is drink wine. But no, there's no evidence, so I'm in pure speculation land. But
but I know what you mean, because I've seen some studies that have pointed out that there is, and again, I want to stress, there is absolutely no archaeological evidence that I know of that suggests any sort of wine production in Scandinavia in this period. However, that warm period that you were talking about, that happens in like the 8th to the 10th or 11th century in Scandinavia, I've seen studies shown that while we don't have archaeological evidence that this happened, we just want to emphasize that this is the only period that we have found where the climate would allow grapevines to flourish in Scandinavia. So technically, production could have been possible, just like climate-wise. We don't know whether or not it happened, but they could have done it if they wanted to and had access to the tools.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a nice little thing that just some English evidence, which Doomsday Book gives you a weird little snapshot. Because one of the things which is listed in Doomsday Book are vineyards. And you see a massive expansion in vineyards after the Norman conquest. There are a few vineyards mentioned in the time of King Edward, the sort of in 1066. But by 1086, which is the other snapshot that we have, there are something like 40, I think. And this is vineyards in presumably southern England, but that is catering for the performative aristocratic tastes of the new bigwigs, of the new landholding classes, who are these Norman lords who have French tastes. And if you want to keep your status, you need to perform status. And one of the ways that you perform status is by drinking wine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Hot day.
Let's wrap it up. So to summarize, I think what you're saying is that Vikings did drink mead, but at the upper echelons and in relation to the important things, I guess, like war, and you would
not at the scale that we imagine them to have.
Yeah, bring it out, but at the scale that we see, it's likely ale.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean the what people are drinking in their homes, the vast amount, the what people are drinking, even probably when they're sort of making a bit of an occasion, it's probably still ale. Mead is shot through with all of the only time we ever see it appearing, it's has to occur in emotive contexts. It's so you get things like a meadow stick in Old English, which is a mead path. Now, what the hell's a mead path? A mead path is something that you are thinking about mead as you go to it, as you walk along the path to the mead hall. So
Yellow Brick Road.
It's an emotional context, whereas the context in which we get sort of compounds in ealu or win, the word for wine, are much more practical. They're much more sort of they're things like the taps or the barrels or those sorts of things. Those are far more the sorts of compound words that we get. So it's high status, but it's also in a slightly dreamy, idealized world.
Huh.
Perfect. So if you had a time machine, you could go back to the Viking Age, what would you like to find out?
I mean, actually, I would like to find out if what we think of as Viking religion, all the Eddic stuff, all the sort of stuff that Snorri tells us about, the stuff that is there in the Poetic Edda, is that what people are believing on the ground? Is that, or are these just a bunch of, is this a sort of, I mean, clearly it's a rationalization to an extent and Snorri and others are who are emphatically Christians, are sort of making sense of Norse mythology and setting out these stories into something. I mean, they're pretty odd and pretty confusing, even in the form that we have them. But you have to assume that actually somebody has thought about them, has tried to make sense of what they are. But to what extent does that actually tally with the sort of with an animistic religion, which may have been a lot more sort of the spirits in the water or that stone or the bear or whatever. And that almost, that kind of doesn't make for such good story. It doesn't make for the good stories that get written down in this sort of quite sophisticated way and make their way into books that people like you or me or whoever then read. Is it that religion? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's some sort of weird mixture. But I think that quite a lot of the sort of religious experience of people on the ground is going to be just as you go about your business, you nod in the direction of the hill, or you propitiate the gods of the stream, or whatever it may be. And whether they have the sort of Thor and Freya and Othin and all of these names that are very familiar to us, or whether they are just sort of who knows what that don't survive to us. That's what I'd like to know. And it's a really confusing. It's a question that's almost difficult to frame, even. But it's trying to think about what we don't know, and
you'd kind of almost have to approach it like an anthropologist and just kind of live with them and observe.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I don't think I would want to go and live with the Vikings because it sounds like a difficult sort of thing to do.
Just the fact that there was milk alcohol makes me want to go nah.
I don't want to drink milk alcohol.
I don't want milk. No, I don't. No milk alcohol. All right. On that note, then let's wrap up. Simon, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about Mead. We'll do a little Q&A if you've got time, maybe 15 minutes, and then we can let you get on with your evening.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Dan and Mags. That has been wonderful. It's been a real pleasure. It's been a joy to talk to you.
Good.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
It's been a hoot.
Mags, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Archeomags, Archeo with a K.
And Simon, do you have a public-facing persona at all?
I
On
do,
Instagram?
yes. I'm on Bluesky, Simon JP Trafford, but I don't post much, to be honest. But I do from time to time.
Perfect. And for me, it's Daniel_Farrand1, Horns Voting for the Business, and then Nordic Mythology podcast across the board. And you can, go check out YouTube. You can watch the episodes. There's a little extra flavor to it when you watch them. You get to see us, see our
extra
our
honey.
smiles. Yeah, some little bit of honey on there. All right.